Have you ever wondered why we love listening to other people's stories? Maybe because, deep down, we hope to find ourselves in them. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And now, here's a story that changed everything for me. If someone had told me that morning, on that crisp, misty October day when the leaves were still dripping from last night's rain, that my whole life would break apart, I would have laughed. That soft, trusting kind of laugh women have before life teaches them to be afraid. My name's Emily. I'm 36 years old. Everyone always thought I was the strong one. The woman who could handle everything on her own. Raise the kids. Fix the leaking roof. Balance the bills. Smile through it all. And I was. Except when it came to him. To David. We lived in an old farmhouse just outside of Brattleboro, Vermont. It was passed down from my grandma, a whitewashed brick home with creaky wood floors and thick windows that fogged up every fall morning. It smelled like dried apples, peppermint tea, and the kind of memories you don't even realize you're still holding on to. We rebuilt it with our bare hands, painting, plastering, fixing the porch under the lazy hum of late summer crickets. And I believed, so deeply, that a home built with love would hold up against anything. David worked for a land surveying company. He spent his days driving through tiny towns, measuring fields, signing papers with farmers, mapping out properties tucked deep into the woods. I trusted him completely. We had it all, the fights, the make-up dinners, the lazy Sunday mornings tangled in blankets. A messy, beautiful, real kind of life. Until the first crack appeared. Not in the walls. In the silence between us. It was subtle. A small shift in the air. Like when a cold front sneaks in, and you don't realize the sky's about to break until the first leaf falls. It was late October. The air smelled like wet earth and the sharp bite of turning leaves. I was cleaning up the living room when I heard his phone buzz, left behind on the kitchen counter next to his half-drunk coffee. Buzz. 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 Curious, I glanced over. A message blinked on the screen. Miss you already, babe. Below it, a little red heart. I don't even remember picking up the phone. All I remember is my heartbeat, thundering so loudly it drowned out everything else. There they were. Message after message. Can't wait to see you again. You drive me crazy, Fox. Counting the hours. I stood there, barefoot on the cold wooden floor, with the taste of ash in my mouth. Everything around me, the worn couch, the ticking clock, the soft hum of the fridge, kept on being real. But I wasn't. It wasn't the love that broke inside me that day. It was the trust. It cracked wide open like thin ice under heavy boots. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I set the phone back down exactly where it was. Walked outside. The grass was still damp from last night's rain. A crow called out somewhere deep in the woods. The whole world felt tilted, wrong, heavy. And standing there, wrapped in my grandmother's old flannel jacket, I realized. The life I thought was mine wasn't real anymore. I didn't confront him. Not at first. I didn't have the strength. Instead, I started watching. Listening. He didn't notice, not the way my smile faltered when he told me he had to stay late at work, or how my hands shook just a little when I set dinner down on the table. He laughed like always. Asked for another cup of coffee like always. Kissed me on the forehead like always. Only, it wasn't always anymore. There was something hollow in the way he touched me now. Something careful, like he was tiptoeing around a ghost. A few nights later, after he fell asleep snoring into his pillow, I lay there staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to the soft creak of the house settling. And in that silence, the truth settled too. Heavy. Unavoidable. I wasn't losing him. I had already lost him. That weekend, I decided to drive into town, said I had errands. Really, I went to meet Rachel. Rachel was an old college friend, tough as nails, working now as a paralegal downtown. The kind of woman who wore jeans and boots to the office and didn't apologize for being smarter than most men in the room. When I slid into the booth at that little diner off Main Street, she took one look at my face and said, "How bad?" I told her everything. The messages. The late nights. The perfume I smelled once on his jacket, not mine, not anything I wore. Rachel listened without interrupting, just sipping her black coffee, tapping her nails lightly on the table. She finally said, "If you're even half sure he's cheating, you need to start protecting yourself. Financially. Legally. Emotionally." She handed me a card, the number of a private investigator she knew. "You don't have to decide today. Just, know your options." I left that diner feeling like I was walking on a frozen lake. Every step could crack the ice wide open. At home, everything felt louder. The slam of the front door. The whir of the washing machine. Even the clock ticking on the kitchen wall sounded like a countdown. David was in the living room, pretending to watch the game. He glanced up, smiled that easy smile that used to make my knees weak. "Hey, babe. Grab you a beer?" I nodded, but inside, I was screaming. Because I could see it now. The way he looked away just a second too long. The new shirt he bought even though money was tight. The way his phone was always face down on the table. It was all there. It had been there for months. I just hadn't wanted to see it. That night, when I lay in bed, I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to tear myself into pieces trying to glue a broken man back together. I would gather the evidence. Quietly. Patiently. Not for revenge. Not for drama. For me. For the woman I used to be before she forgot how to listen to her own heart. The next morning was clear and cold, the first real frost sparkling on the grass like crushed glass. I stood barefoot on the porch with a mug of coffee, feeling the bite of the air on my skin. Somewhere deep in the woods, a fox barked, sharp and lonely. And I thought. That's me now. A little wild. A little broken. But still standing. Still standing. The next few weeks were a blur of pretending. Pretending I didn't see the way David checked his phone under the table. Pretending I didn't notice the new cologne he started wearing. Pretending I didn't hear the little lie slip so easily from his lips when he said, "Just a late meeting, babe." I became an expert at pretending. I cooked his favorite chili, ironed his shirts, kissed him goodbye at the door. And every time, a little more of me died inside. At night, after he fell asleep, I'd lie awake staring at the dark outline of the ceiling fan spinning slowly overhead. Sometimes I imagined reaching up, pulling the whole ceiling down around me, just to make it all stop. But I didn't. I stayed. I watched. I waited. One Sunday afternoon, it happened. We were supposed to have dinner with his parents, pot roast and mashed potatoes, the whole Norman Rockwell scene. David was running late, said he had to swing by the office first. I decided to clean up while I waited. I picked up his jacket off the back of the chair, meaning to hang it up. And something slipped out of the pocket. A receipt. For a hotel in the next town over. Dated 2 nights ago. 2 nights ago when he said he was working late. I stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by the smell of apple pie baking in the oven, the autumn wind rattling the windows. And I couldn't breathe. The world tilted sideways. The pie burned. The phone rang. I didn't move. I just stared at that thin piece of paper that felt heavier than any brick. That was it. No more pretending. When David finally walked through the door, whistling like nothing in the world could touch him, I was sitting at the kitchen table. The receipt was laid out neatly in front of me. He froze. The color drained from his face. "Emily," he started, voice too high, too fast, "I can explain." I held up a hand. Quiet. Firm. "Don't," I said. "Just don't." There was nothing he could say that would sew me back together. Somewhere deep inside, I felt something shift. Like a dam breaking. I wasn't angry. I wasn't devastated. I was done. He tried everything after that. Tears. Apologies. Promises of counseling, of change, of new beginnings. But you can't rebuild a house on sand. And you can't rebuild trust once it's been washed away. I packed a bag that night. Just a few things, jeans, a couple of sweaters, my grandmother's old quilt. I left the wedding photo face down on the nightstand. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I just walked out into the crisp October night, the grass crunching under my boots, the stars sharp and cold overhead. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt free. I didn't go far that night. Just down the road, to a little cabin I sometimes rented when I needed to breathe. It sat at the edge of the woods, tucked under a stand of old pine trees. The porch sagged a little. The heater rattled when it kicked on. But it smelled like cedar and damp earth and freedom. I curled up on the worn-out couch under my grandma's quilt, listening to the crickets chirping outside, and for the first time in months, I slept without fear. The next morning, the sun poured through the lace curtains in thick golden ribbons. The world looked different. Sharper. More fragile. I made coffee on the old gas stove, wrapped my hands around the chipped mug, and stepped outside. The cold bit at my cheeks, and the ground was frosted over in delicate silver lace. Everything felt new. And terrifying. And somehow right. Over the next few days, I called Rachel. Told her it was time. She helped me find a lawyer, a good one. Tough. No nonsense. We filed for divorce. David tried to reach out, calls, texts, even flowers once left wilting on the front porch. But I didn't answer. I didn't block his number. I didn't rage. I just stopped being available. It's funny how quiet your life gets when you stop filling it with noise that doesn't love you back. There were hard days. The nights were the worst. When the loneliness curled up next to me like a cold, wet dog. I'd sit on the porch, listening to the far-off hoot of an owl, the wind stirring the dry leaves, and I'd wonder. How did I end up here? But deep down, I knew. I ended up here because I finally chose myself. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't someone's wife. I wasn't someone's safety net. I was just Emily. And that scared the hell out of me. But it also thrilled me in a way nothing ever had. About a month after I left, I drove back to the farmhouse. I needed to pick up the last few things, some books, my garden tools, the old rocking chair from the porch. David wasn't home. Thank God. The house felt hollow. Like a place holding its breath. I walked from room to room, touching the familiar walls, the scratched-up floors, the window frames we had painted together one golden afternoon when the whole world still felt new. There was a tenderness to the memories. A sadness, too. But not regret. I loaded up my truck, tied everything down with bungee cords, and stood for a long moment in the driveway, staring at that house. At the life we tried to build there. Thank you, I whispered. For what you gave me. And for what you took away. Then I got in the truck, cranked the engine, and drove away without looking back. Life didn't magically get easier after I left. There were bills to pay. Paperwork to sign. Sleepless nights where doubt crept in like smoke under the door. But slowly, like the first green shoots after a long winter, I started to build something new. I found a tiny rental house on the edge of town, nothing fancy, just 2 rooms and a battered porch swing that squeaked in the breeze. I planted a little garden out back, tomatoes, sunflowers, herbs. Something to put my hands in. Something that would grow because of me. I got a job at the local library, shelving books and recommending novels to teenagers with 2 big backpacks and soft, hopeful eyes. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the life I'd imagined at 20. But it was mine. And then, one rainy afternoon, when the world smelled like wet asphalt and the lilacs were just starting to bloom, I met someone. Not in some dramatic, movie scene kind of way. Just, life, quietly shifting again. His name was Jack. He wasn't flashy. He didn't try to sweep me off my feet. He just noticed things. How I always carried a sweater even on warm days. How I tapped my foot when I was nervous. How I liked my coffee black with exactly 2 sugars. He saw me. Really saw me. And he didn't try to fix me. He just stood close enough that I could fix myself. We started slow. Walks by the river. Coffee dates that turned into late-night conversations on my porch while the stars spun lazy circles overhead. He never pushed. Never pried. Just listened. And one night, when the frogs were singing down by the creek and the fireflies turned the backyard into a fairy tale, he touched my hand, light as a whisper, and said, "You don't have to be brave with me, Emily. You just have to be real." I cried then. Not from sadness. From relief. Because after everything, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the wreckage of the life I thought I wanted, I was still capable of being loved. Not for who I pretended to be, but for who I really was. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still hard days. Still moments when the old fear crept in. Still scars that ached when the weather changed. But there was laughter too. And slow dances in the kitchen. And sleepy Sunday mornings with coffee and worn-out sweatshirts. It was messy. It was honest. It was real. And it was enough. Sometimes I drive past the old farmhouse, just to see. It's different now. The new owners painted the porch. Tore down the garden. Built a swing set where the old apple tree used to be. And that's okay. That house isn't mine anymore. Neither is that life. When people ask me how I survived it. The betrayal, the loneliness, the starting over from scratch. I tell them the truth. I didn't survive it because I'm strong. I survived it because I finally stopped believing I had to be. Sometimes strength isn't holding on. Sometimes it's letting go. Sometimes it's standing barefoot in the cold October grass, heart shattered and hands shaking, and still finding the courage to say, "I deserve better than this." And meaning it. So if you're sitting there tonight, heartbroken and scared and wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, listen to me. You will. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But someday, the hurt will loosen its grip. The sky will open. The river will run clear again. And you'll realize. You were never broken. You were just becoming. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story touched your heart, leave a like and a comment. I picked 2 more stories you might love, don't miss them. See you in the next video.